thanks to Sri D. Chakrapani Garu, Founder Director General of APHRDA, for continuously providing anonymous guidance for conducting online knowledge sharing sessions. The Andhra Pradesh Human Resource Development Institute has been established in August 2015 in the wake of the bifurcations of the state. It started functioning initially from the premises of Triple IT Newsweed in the month of October 2015 and moved to its present premises at Bapatla, the Extension Training Center ETC of Panchayat Raj Department in April 2016. The APHRDA Institute is envisaged to be developed as state-of-the-art institutions to meet the training and capacity building requirements of officers and staff of government departments, undertakings and other public functionaries. The training encompasses induction, orientation, skill development, physical and psychological fitness, and a sense of ownership of the government programs. Government of Andhra Pradesh consider that the APHRDA Institute should emerge as a national institute of excellence, duly focusing on modern administrative and management techniques as also the right mix of services and self-sufficiency. Well-equipped hostel facility is available at all the centers of APHRDI. AC residential accommodation is available for all the resource persons and the participants at all the centers of APHRDI. The APHRDI is one of few ATIs in the country to have a national knowledge network facility. This is enabled us to establish instantaneous video link for effective interactive sessions with about 16 national institutions all over the country. APHRDA has so far facilitated 6 international presentations from US, Estonia, China, Sri Lanka, and England. APHRDA has completed 746 programs since its inspections and trained nearly 69,736 employees. APHRDA has so far completed 73 online knowledge sharing sessions with 37 general sessions, 13 capacity building programs, 11 professional training to engineers, 3 induction training program for Deputy Superintendent of Police, and 6 DRR in association with NIDM Government of India. From 2020, from 22 April 2020 onwards with the participants of 32,351 employees. A number of training programs of the APHRDA are being supported by Department of Personal Training, Government of India. The institute has so far facilitated training and state exposure for 81 officers of Central Secretariat from Government of India in the last 4 years. This is done in 6 batches of training. Senior functionaries of Indian Foreign Services have also been attached to APHRDA for their state exposure. Training programs of IAS provisioners allotted to AP state are regularly being conducted at APHRDA. APHRDA has also facilitated the conducted of state attachment of civil service officers from Haryana as part of Bharat Darshan. Government of India have initiated a unique program called Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat for facilitating officers from 2 states to spend considerable time in both the states. AP has paid with Punjab in this regard during 2019-20. APHRDA has completed capacity building training on Titli Cyclone project in collaboration with APSDMA and UNDP. APHRDA has also conducted PDNA study of the flooding in Godavari River with particular reference to East Godavari district. APHRDA has also completed a unique 15 days induction training program for visually impaired and deaf and dumb categories of employees belonging to different departments. This is supported by Department of Personal Training, Government of India. APHRDA has completed DTS training to 424 identified resource persons and coordinators for the Animal Husbandry Department. A total of 2,000 distinguished resource persons from different parts of the country have made presentations at APHRDA. The details of resource persons are available in the website www.aphrdiap.gov.in. APHRDH has evolved the practice of providing internship to college students in different streams. For the year 2020-21, BITS Pilani Rajasthan has deputed 30 students to APHRDI under particular school program. This has recently concluded. APHRDS also associates itself with various institutions and organizations in furthering the development into sustainable development in fulfilling the vision of the nation in general and the state in particular. In order to meet the above objective, APHRDI in association with UNICEF Hyderabad Field Office has set up a Center for Sustainable Development Goals in January 2018 in its campus at Bapatla. The Center for Sustainable Development Goals of APHRDA supports the government of Andhra Pradesh in all its development efforts and provides technical assistance in all important programs. In the current year, the CSDG Center is pursuing DRR activities under goal number 11 with support of UNICEF. This is in addition to promoting all other sustainable development goals through appropriate capacity building efforts. Now the brief about programs.
Data privacy and protection has been so vital during this pandemic COVID-19. Data protection regulators across the world are guiding on compliance and enforcement during the corona outbreak. Meanwhile,
Kishore,
governments are using.
Kishore, sorry, please introduce yourself before you speak at the program.
Good morning, all. I am Kishore Kumar, manager working at Regional Center APHRDA Andhra Pradesh, Government of Andhra Pradesh. Before we introduce our distinguished speaker for the day, a brief about the program. Data privacy and protection has been so vital during this pandemic COVID-19. Data protection regulators across the world are guiding on compliance and enforcement during coronavirus outbreak. Meanwhile, governments are using tracking technologies to slow the spread of virus. Cyber criminals have increased their activities and business risks, fines if they are ignore data protection and privacy laws. Public health interests can provide legitimate reasons to increase the monitoring of individuals, but monitoring even by governments must be approached with caution. The latest development in tracking technologies and artificial intelligence could have a serious implications for individuals' privacy long after the COVID pandemic has abated. This is the time when individuals need more protection than ever. Organizations should be mindful of this when implementing new policies and procedures or conducting new marketing campaigns. Regulators may be prepared to cut organizations some slack during this period, but now it is not the time to be complacent. Today's we have a distinguished speaker, Sri Dr. V. Sridhar, professor from Center for IT and Public Policy, International Institute of Information Technology, Bangalore. Dr. Sridhar.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Revolution in India, technology regulation policy, the dynamics of spectrum management, legacy, technology and economics. His third book titled Emerging ICT Policies and Regulations, Roadmap to Digital Economies was published in 2009 by Springer Nature. He is currently editing a book titled Data Centric Living, Algorithms, Digitization Regulation to be published by Routledge. Dr. Sridhar has taught at many institutions in United States of America, Finland, New Zealand, and India. He has received funding from different sources, both national and international, for his research projects. A recent one being from Facebook and Azim Premji University Research Foundation. Has been a member of government of India committees on telecom and IT, and has published many peer-reviewed articles in telecom and information systems, journals. Dr. Sridhar has PhD from University of Iowa, United States of America. His works can be accessed at www.vsridhar.info. APHRD warmly welcomes you, sir, for the invited talk today to address all our participants. Now we have 193 participants online now. We will welcome you, sir. Over to Dr. Sridhar.
1 minute, sorry, Kishore, could you kindly explain for a minute the acquisition of the enterprise WebEx facility by the HRD and how it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for training of government employees of all departments? Please explain in a minute and then kindly request Dr. Sridhar.
APHRD proudly announces that we are acquiring 100 host license of WebEx video conferencing tool, each host accommodating 1,000 participants, and we are planning to conduct departmental trainings individually by utilizing this facility. And we request all the department heads who are presently in the meeting to utilize this facility so that we can build the capacities among all the departments of Government of Andhra Pradesh. So over to Dr. Sridhar.
Thank you. Thank you very much to APHRD Institute. And thanks very much to Mr. Kishore Kumar for this introduction. Also to Dr. Shashi Bhushan Kumar, Director General, for inviting me to present this particular talk. So I will mute the video to conserve bandwidth. If you have any questions, you can always type it in the chat window. So in general, we will take it up at the end of the session, but if there is any pressing comment to be made, you can always stop me and ask. So is that okay? Can I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I will share the presentation, which I have already passed it on to. Yeah. So I think you are able to see the presentation. So, so this particular topic is interesting and it is also very relevant in today's context. The privacy in the COVID times. In fact, Mr. Kishore Kumar sent me a message and Mr. Bharti also sent me a message referring to this particular article that I wrote some time back in Hindu Business Line. So you can also refer to that if you have any questions. This came out in Hindu Business Line on 20th of April. So I will also use some material, and if that is required, then I can pass it on to you. My work can be accessed as Mr. Kishore Kumar mentioned at www.vsridhar.info. Okay, so then now context, right? So the context is very important. So as you all know, we have a number of COVID-19 apps, and the most used one is Aarogya Setu. And we know that it has been downloaded. I think the last count is, we are inching close to about 110 million downloads. So 110 million downloads is a large number by any standard. This is used for a variety of purposes, and we'll go through some of the details. And I've heard that the state of Andhra Pradesh also has its own COVID app. It also has a pharmacy app. These are all very important in these trying times. Right? So they also have certain purposes, but there is also a concern, not only you and me, that we as data subjects, but also amongst civil society organizations and others, technocrats even, that there may be some privacy issues that might come up, and we need to address it. Right? So that is the whole purpose of this particular talk. So initially, I will first define, what is information privacy, right? So it is a very confusing sort of terminology, because normally, can anyone in the audience tell what they understand as information privacy? I will leave the floor open for about 2 minutes for anyone to sort of discuss, just briefly tell what they understand as information privacy. Any one of you. Or you can chat, you can put it on the chat as well. What is information privacy according to you? Somebody is trying to speak, but I think microphone is muted. Yeah, you can drop the messages in the chat box. I'm yet to see the first message. Once I get the first message, then I will start. What is information privacy according to you? Anyone? No one? Okay. Then I have to proceed, right? Okay. So this is briefly what information privacy is all about, right? You can refer to this particular work of the Professor Daniel Soloway, who basically defined this concept of privacy a long time back in 2006. Right? So whenever data subjects like you and me give out certain information to a data fiduciary, for example, the Aarogya Setu app is an application that gets the data from you for the government to make some decisions, and therefore the government is the data fiduciary. Likewise, for example, as we speak, WebEx may be collecting some data. Cisco may be collecting some data about the presentation details, duration, how many participants are there in this particular conversation, and so on. And that is a data fiduciary. So when the information is collected from the data subject by the data fiduciary, it goes through a particular cycle, right? The first one is information collection phase, wherein the information is collected from the user, then it is processed, then it is probably disseminated to certain others, depending upon the purpose for which it is collected, and there can also be invasion. Right? So now, whenever the information goes through this collection, processing, and dissemination stage, there can be concerns. For example, when the data is collected, is it collected after informing you, right? Or is it collected without you knowing about what information is getting collected, right? So, for example, how many of you know that when you install Aarogya Setu app, the Bluetooth and Bluetooth is automatically activated. Bluetooth and GPS, both of them are automatically enabled, right? So that the contact information and the location information can be collected by the Aarogya Setu app. Now, if you have not read through the privacy policy, that is when you first install Aarogya Setu app, a lot of things, it asks you to read through certain terms and conditions and also the privacy policy. If you have not read through this, you will not even know that information about you is being collected, right? The only information that you think is being collected is at the time of registration that you enter the mobile number, and also periodically you will do a health checkup. So you might think that only this information is collected, but there are other information that is also being collected, right? So that is the information collection stage in which a lot of information gets collected. For example, today, if you go to any of the institutes, I'm sure that it is applicable at APHRDI as well. There may be CCTV cameras in certain locations, and there may be a bulletin where as soon as you enter the institute, it might say that CCTV has been installed in certain places for monitoring purposes. So there you are being informed that CCTV is there and the data is collected. But there can be possible privacy violations even in that particular case, right? So we will come and discuss a little bit about that later on. Then the information, after it is collected, it is processed. It is processed, and during the process, there can be a number of privacy violations, and we will discuss some of those things later on. One of the things which obviously is becoming, everybody talks about is insecurity. For example, when I'm doing a processing, when I'm storing that information that is collected from the data subjects, it is possible that it can be hacked, right? Or when the information, for example, in the COVID-19 app, there is a Bluetooth, Bluetooth is enabled, and if somebody who comes within the Bluetooth range of about 2 meters, then the information about the contact person is also getting collected. Right now, what happens if that information is hacked? That is the most concern of all the data subjects. Right. So hacking is one thing, and there's just one of the many possible privacy violations that can happen during the information processing stage. We'll come and discuss some of these things later on. Then information can also be disseminated, right? So, for example, in the Aarogya Setu app today, if you go to the contacts, right? So, there is a new, if you download the latest version, there is an information which is given saying that there are so many, contacts who have come within the Bluetooth range in the last 30 days. Now, if you want to know the status of those people, then upload it onto the government server, right? Now, when you upload it, you should be very confident that the information that you upload is not disseminated to anyone else, right? So, for example, it should not be disseminated to an insurance service provider who might call up as soon as you transfer the information on selling some health insurance policies, right? So that is the information dissemination stage. And the last one is information business, right? So in general, the data subjects can be individuals, businesses, and society at large, right? So there are information which are connected, not only about individuals, but also business entities and societies and so on. But in this particular talk, and also in general, most of the regulations discuss only about the data about individuals, not about businesses or societies at large, right? So this is the data that is pertaining to a natural person, right? So that's what we will discuss during this particular talk. So first we need to understand what is the purpose of COVID-19. Most of you may be familiar with this, but I want to just go through it briefly, right? So basically this data, COVID-19 apps, any of the COVID-19 apps that have been, developed world over, they collect data about natural persons by subjects like you and me, and they collect most of it is personal data. The personal data meaning, at the time of registration, you might have to put your name that is directly identifiable as you, which identifies you, which is directly identified. But at the same time, at the time of registration, you also give, most important detail that you give is the mobile number, right? Because only through mobile number that alerts can be sent and so on, right? This is not directly identifiable, it is indirectly identifiable, because you can always change your SIM, in which case you cannot be identified anymore and so on, right? But given the mobile number, it is possible to sort of give, along with other information, it's possible to identify the data subjects, right? It also says that it is going to monitor and collect your location information, right? Because if your location information is collected, then you can be pinpointed. You can, for example, today most of the states, including the state of Karnataka, have used geofencing in order to keep track of COVID-19 patients, right? Because they can actually put the geofencing, and if they cross certain location boundaries, then the alerts can be sent to the administration, right? So these are all indirectly identifiable information. Then there can be sensitive information, right? Sensitive information includes, for example, your biometric information. Of course, for example, the COVID-19 apps do not collect biometric information. They collect your age, for example, right? They collect your age. The important information that is collected by the COVID-19 app is age, right? Because of the susceptibility of old people of this particular pandemic. So it is a sensitive information. For example, you might ask, why I should give my age, so that, if my age is beyond, above certain limits, then it is possible it can be used for some other purposes. Then there is critical information. Critical information includes, for example, health, financial, criminal records, and so on. But in the COVID-19 app, the most important critical information that is collected is health information. Health information includes whether you have been self-tested, or when you are self-tested, are you well, are you okay, if somebody is tested as COVID-19 positive, that information is included along with your other information. That is a very important health information for health administration purposes, right? So this is basically the type of data that gets collected. Now, what information is collected? Again, you can do some taxonomy of the type of information and how it is collected. For example, most of the information is given by the data subjects. For example, in the COVID-19 app, at the time of registration, you voluntarily give your name, phone number, and age, and so on. Right? That is collected by the data subject, given by the data subjects. They are not, which are not explicitly given from the data subjects. For example, your location information and the person who you are coming into contact within the Bluetooth range. That's not explicitly given by you. It is collected by the app, right? As soon as you install, it enables Bluetooth and GPS, and it automatically keeps collecting this information, right? So that is information not explicitly given. Collected from third parties. It is possible that the government can also get, or government or any other data fiduciary can get data from third parties as well. Fortunately, in COVID-19 apps, they won't collect data from third parties. It's only the data which is collected that is being used. Okay. So what type of information is being collected by the COVID-19 apps in general? In general, they collect personal information, like as we discussed, mobile number, gender, age, and so on. Location tracking. So they collect the geolocation of the mobile phone at the time of registration, right? So, and also all the geolocation movements when you move from one place to the other, right? So this is very important, right? Now, at the time of registration, if your geolocation is collected, then it can be used to determine where you live, right? So that, for example, if there is any potential pandemic in the area in which you live, then you can be alerted. That is the whole purpose of the geolocation at the time of registration. But it is possible that you will be moving around, right? And geolocation of continuous movements, when it is being collected, then it is more than what is collected at the time of registration, right? This basically, using this, we can actually figure out what your movement history is, right? Where all have you gone, and things like that. And from there, I can make a lot of inferences. So location tracking is one of the important information that is collected by COVID-19 apps. Then contact tracing, right? This is one of the important characteristics of COVID-19 apps. They basically timestamp individuals who come into contact within the Bluetooth range is very important, right? So that in case the person with whom you are in contact turns out to be COVID-19, then you as a contact can be traced, and appropriate tests can be done, monitored, so that we can contain the spread of the particular virus. So contact tracing is one of the important information that is collected by most of the COVID-19 apps. In fact, it is the mandatory requirement for any of the COVID-19 apps. Now, then there are clinical information that are collected. For example, if the test is done on an individual, then the test results, positive or negative, that is corrected. And if the individual is quarantined or given treatment, the treatment details are also collected. And these are all appended, right, to the information that is collected in the COVID-19 app, so that a personal health history is created, right? Okay. Now, there can also be other information. Some apps collect that. For example, most of the Chinese apps follow, using Facebook or Twitter or Instagram posts, try to find out your contacts, right? Fortunately or unfortunately, Aarogya Setu does not do that, and most of the COVID-19 apps do not do that, right? But we have heard instances of the apps in China basically use information from Facebook, Twitter, Instagram in order to supplement the information that they have already collected like this, right? So that is the information that is collected by COVID-19. Now, why are we doing this, right? So the most important question is, there should be some purpose, right? The purpose, we'll come and discuss a little bit about the purpose later on. So COVID-19 data is sort of semi-public. That is in the aggregated form, it is available to the public, but individual details are not disclosed. Why is it used? It's used for, first of all, administrative notification. It is used for tracking the infected, tracing the infected, right? Where all have they gone? Have they, if they are quarantined, or they in the place that they are supposed to be, and so on. Then, so that you can ensure quarantine compliance. You can find out contacts for tracing purposes, and then do tests on them. The aggregated information is also used for finding out clusters, right? So location clusters where the epidemic is present, and then take administrative actions, such as, for example, lockdown or geofencing, right? It is also used for managing healthcare facilities, right? For example, setting up fever clinics, setting up private hospital beds, mobilizing, for example, healthcare workers in doctor assignments, testing preparation. All these things can be done using the information that is collected by COVID-19 apps. Then the most important thing is user notification. The user is notified if there is an infection possibility. The user can also be notified, for example, if there is a lockdown of a particular location. As you're probably aware, Aarogya Setu, you can find out how many affected persons are there in your 0.5 kilometers region, 1 kilometer areas, 2 kilometer areas, and so on, so that you can feel confident that you are safe in that particular region where you are living. Right? It can also be used to find out the hospital treatment centers. It can also be used to avail e-passes and so on. Right? And it can also be used for epidemiology research. That is one of the important aspects, apart from these two things that we have discussed. Right? So collecting this information helps us to, for example, model contagion information, where all the infection is spreading, what is the diffusion pattern, what are the socioeconomic impact, for example, what kind of people are being affected, is there any socioeconomic impacts because of this particular pandemic. It can also be used for vaccine research, right? Because most of the vaccine research also depends on the type of data that is being collected. In fact, if you go to covid19.org, you can visually you can see, for example, from the data that has been collected, you can see the infection, squad level, and also the individual district level, and also individual ward level. So all these are possible only because of the information that is collected using the COVID-19 apps. Right? So this is the basic use, the purpose of the COVID-19 app. Now, so given that, it is very important that we monitor the health of the individuals, and also the how, for example, infection is spreading using this information that is collected by the COVID-19 apps. Now, so it's all for health reasons, and it is good as long as it is within certain regulatory principles, right? So that is the point of this particular talk. Okay. Now, when the information is collected about you as a natural person, then something, your private information is being collected. It can be used for unwanted purposes, and hence most of the regulations have certain basic principles of privacy that you need to preserve when you collect personal data. Right? The personal data meaning the data about the individuals, such as name, mobile number, contacts, geolocation, their health status, and so on. They have to comply with certain basic principles. Right? So the first one is it has to be done lawfully. Right? So, for example, it has to be according to the law, meaning that you cannot generally get personal information about a person without a law backing up, right? Because if you do that, then the personal data can be used for unwanted purposes. Another important aspect in the privacy principle is informed consent. Right? Everybody should know, as a data subject, what data is being collected, how it is being processed, how it is going to be disseminated, how safe is it, who takes the responsibility if the information is leaked out or hacked. So all this information should be given consent by the individual users. Right? So, for example, even when you are installing the Aarogya Setu or any other COVID-19 apps, there is an information which says that, you know, we will be using it for this purpose, and therefore your consent is required in order to proceed further. So you have to click yes in order to continue further. Otherwise, you need not install it, right? So this is the informed consent space, right? So most of the times we are used to clicking yes, right? But after taking this particular talk, you have to really read through what data is being collected before ticking that check mark on yes, I agree to the information that is collected by this particular app. Right? Informed consent. The most important part of the informed consent is also revocation. In case, you know, in future, I am getting jittery about the information that is collected about me, and I want to delete it. I want to delete the app. Today, it is possible for you to delete the Aarogya Setu app. It is not mandatory. At one point of time, it was made mandatory that you should carry this Aarogya Setu app wherever you go, right? Even, for example, for boarding on the train. And that is also related to what is known as the decisional interference. You know, for example, somebody is telling me for example, on the state, the government is telling me to take Aarogya Setu app wherever I go. I know that wherever I go, if I take Aarogya Setu app on my mobile, then my location is being tracked, right? And therefore, there should be a provision for voluntarily deciding whether to install the app or mandated by the state. So, in fact, our central government has made it voluntary, right? So, through many, for example, advertisements, we are encouraging the citizens to install our Setu app because it is good for them, not only for them, but for the whole society as well, because we can use it for the purposes for which it has been designed, as discussed, right? In China, it is a different matter. As you know, I mean, it is made mandatory in most of the cases. So, in a democratic country like ours, it cannot be made as mandatory. So, we have taken a step on voluntary, inclusion of the app. Okay. Now, purpose limitation. This is also very important, right? Now, I discussed in the previous slide what is the purpose behind the COVID-19 app for collecting certain kinds of information. It has to be used. The information that is collected has to be used only for the sole purpose for which it is collected, right? It cannot be used for anything other than the purpose for which it is collected. It is very, very important, right? So, for example, tomorrow the government cannot use the information that is collected about me for sending me a tax invoice. Okay, so this person has not paid a service tax or GST, and therefore let us issue a service tax notice. They cannot do that because tax notice is not in the purpose for which the Aarogya Setu app was, I installed it. You know, at that time when I installed it, it was not there. It was not the purpose, and therefore it cannot be used for example, taxation purposes. Right? That is why, for example, most of the people resisted when they were asked for Aarogya Setu app to be shown at the time of boarding the train. Because for boarding the train, what we require is a valid ticket, right? And when we install the Aarogya Setu app, it does not say that it should be used when, if you want to board the train. And therefore, it went beyond the purpose limitations, and later the government has revoked it, right? So, very, very important to stick to what is the purpose and then adhere to the purpose limitations for which the data is collected. The other major principle in privacy is data minimization. We have to collect as minimum information as possible so that we can serve the purpose. Right? We cannot collect more information than what is needed. Right? So, for example, at the time of installing the app, your age is important because the pandemic is very, affects elderly people much more, or people below the age of 10 much more than others. Therefore, it is very important to get your age information at the time of registration. But, and it does not do that, unfortunately. Can they collect the gender information, male or female? There is no evidence to point out that the COVID-19 virus is more affects male or female than the others, right? And therefore, there is no reason as to why a gender information has to be collected. Or, for example, date of birth. Date of birth is not important. Age is important, right? And therefore, it is very important to use the principle of data minimization. You have to collect only the minimum amount of data that is required for serving a particular purpose, right? And Aarogya Setu app more or less does that, because it takes your name, because you have to be identified. It takes your mobile number so that the alerts can be sent and contact tracing can happen. It asks your age, because if you are above 60 years of age, then certain precautions can be done, right? Can be taken even by the health administrators. But it does not ask you for date of birth and things like that, and therefore it adheres to the data minimization principle. Then accuracy, right? The data has to be accurate, right? And it has to be periodically renewable. For example, tomorrow I change my SIM, right? I change my SIM, then the old SIM number, it is quite possible that after 1 or 2 months, normally the telephone companies recirculate the number. So they can give that number to someone else, right? And then it is inaccurate information, right? So the mobile number which is there in the COVID-19 database it says that it belongs to me, but in fact this number has gone to someone else because I surrendered the SIM, switched to SIM, whatever it is, right? And therefore this the information that is collected by the data fiduciary has to be updated. There should be a provision for you to change, for example, your mobile number in case it changes. Right? So that is one of the important characteristics. The next one is integrity. The information has to be secure, right? And there should not be any tampering of the information. It has to be secure. For example, the COVID-19 app uses advanced encryption in order to encrypt the information that it sends, if at all it has to send, to the government servers. It also encrypts the information between two devices during contact tracing. If you are coming in contact with a Bluetooth, within the Bluetooth range, the information about the contact, including the mobile number, is transferred to your phone. But that is done in a very, very secure way so that nobody can hack into this, right? Then there is responsibility. Who takes responsibility for all the data that is collected? What happens if the data, there is a leakage? Hackers are there always, right? You can always hack any system. It is possible that if some hacking happens and my data is stolen, who takes the responsibility? Is it the government? Is it the firm? Right? So this has to be very, very clear, right? Data fiduciaries have to take responsibility. Or is it the responsibility of the individuals themselves? For example, if I lose my phone, right, and that phone is hacked to get my personal information, COVID-19 information from the app, who takes responsibility? I should be taking responsibility, right? So there should be some responsibility on the individuals as well. Then the last one is retention, most important, right? How long is the information that is collected is retained? For example, it clearly says that in Aarogya Setu, if I delete the app, the information that is already collected will be erased after about 30 days, right? So there is a period. So for example, if all your contact information, contact tracing information will be deleted after 14 days, right? Because that's the incubation period for the virus, the whole life cycle of the virus of the infected person. Right? So this retention part is very important. Also, what happens after COVID-19? Fortunately, hopefully this COVID-19 will cease and we will come back to a normal life, right? Now, when we come back to a normal life, what happens to all the data that has been collected? Will it be retained further, or will it be erased? Will it be archived? Will I be knowing what is happening to this particular data? Will I be sending an alert saying that your data has been deleted? Right? So all these are very important from the privacy principles point of view. Okay. Now, 11:45. I have about half an hour. So consent. So consent is also very important, right? So most of the times we don't read. For example, the consent form that comes up when you install an app. right? It may ask you a lot of questions. So, for example, do you the app has to have access to, for example, contacts, photos, mobile numbers, messaging, and so on and so on. And for everything, there will be one tick box which says that I agree to this condition. So, if you click that, then everything will be made available to the app. Right? Is it consent? Okay, so it's a very important aspect. So first of all, we need to obtain the consent. And the consent has to be informed, which means that the data subjects like you and me should be totally informed. It should not be ambiguous, right? It should not be ambiguous at all. And it should be freely given. I should not be mandated to give the consent. Unfortunately, most of the apps, if you don't press yes, right, it will not get installed, which means that I have to mandatorily give this particular consent. That is not really what a consent should be, right? I should be able to say that, oh, this app can only have access to my contacts, not my photos, right? Because photos are not required for the app to do its function. I should be in a position to give different kinds of consent for different types of data, right? So this should be there. Okay. Yeah. So then withdrawing consent. I should be in a position to withdraw the consent that I have given earlier, right? Not only giving consent, but I should be able to withdraw the consent. There are always exceptions. What is the alternative to consent? The alternative to consent can be of, in case of COVID-19, it is the health, right? So, for example, even if you don't give the consent, I will still enable Bluetooth and GPS because that is very important for contact tracing and location tracing. It is important for the lives of the individuals, right? And therefore, there are alternatives to consent, especially in protecting life or saving national interest or for business. So in the case of COVID-19, even though it does not explicitly state all those details, for health reason, protecting health of individuals in society, there can be alternatives to giving explicit consent by the individuals. So this is the taxonomy of consent, which the data fiduciary, either the government or the firm, has to involve. Okay. Now, most of the regulations require the data fiduciary to, for example, to adhere to certain principles, right? So it can be equally applicable for both private firms as well as government. For example, so it has to be protecting the data by design, right? All the apps have to be designed in such a way that they protect the personal information of the individuals, right? It should adhere to the basic principles that we discussed, such as, for example, data minimization and so on. If it has to be sent somewhere, then it has to be in pseudo-anonymized or anonymized, right? So that the personal individual cannot be re-identified. For example, if you look at any of the COVID-19.org, any of the websites, right? They use aggregated information. From that information, you cannot really figure out who has been tested as COVID-19 positive. For example, the patient information that is given today, like P followed by the numerals. From there, we cannot really directly identify who has been infected, right? Because that's a personal health information that should not be disclosed. So the process is known as anonymization and pseudonymization, and that has to be employed by the data fiduciary. They have to keep all records of processing. They have to make sure that the information that is collected, processed is secure. They have to implement all security safeguards to make sure that it cannot be hacked. They should deploy cryptographic techniques. For example, the advanced encryption standards is used, which is very difficult to crack. We will come back and discuss a little bit later on. And recovery, in case, for example, there is a security breach, can I recover all the information, right? And should the data fiduciary should be doing periodic tests, right? Security tests, updates of the apps so that there is no security holes in the apps or in the servers in which the information is stored, right? So the data fiduciary has to adhere to all the security principles. They have to notify in case of data breach. In case, for example, there is a compromise on your personal data, then immediately the data fiduciary has to notify the government. It also has to notify, for example, the individuals within some time. For example, probably 72 hours, within 3 days. All the individuals have to be informed as to what kind of a data breach happened, what information was stolen, what precautions are being taken to protect from now onwards, right? So these things have to be done by the data fiduciary. Then there is data protection impact assessment, assessment the security and risks periodically, and address these security risks on a continuous basis. These are all obligations of the data controller or a processor or a fiduciary. This is a general principle which is applicable in most of the regulations. Okay. So apart from the regulations, for example, I have not discussed what regulations are in the European Union as a general data protection regulation, which is applicable for the EU. In India, we have a personal data protection bill, which is not enacted in the parliament yet. It has been approved by the cabinet, and that also has most of the details as I have discussed earlier. Right? So once the personal data protection bill becomes an act and a law, then all this, whatever is there that I have discussed, are present in the Personal Data Protection Act as well. And within the India, that law is applicable. Okay. Now, apart from all these things, there is something called as privacy policy. I don't know whether you have read the privacy policy of Aarogya Setu. You should read it after this talk, right? Basically, the privacy policy says a lot of things. What information is collected, how the informed consent is arrived at, whether the information is shared with someone else, how the information is stored, what is the duration of the information that is collected, if you have any problems, right? Can I ask someone, is there any grievance redressal which is available? And who can access this particular information that is being collected? So all these have to be there in the privacy policy. In fact, Aarogya Setu has a good privacy policy. You should go and read that, because once you install even the information page, you can click that and then you will be able to read the privacy policy of Aarogya Setu, right? So it says all these things, right? So for example, what information is collected, why it is collected, how it is collected, and so on. And then it also discusses, for example, informed consent. One thing which is very important is children and minor. For example, children below the age of 18, who makes the consent? The child may not know exactly what is privacy and what information is collected, and may not be educated. He may not know all those details. So, should the parents confirm on behalf of the children is very, very important, especially in the case of children and minors. Okay, now information sharing. What information that is collected, is it being shared with third parties? So, right, if at all, you should know to which third parties you are getting stored. Now, for example, we know that if you do a Google search, your Google search is being sold to third party advertisers, so that the advertisements can come depending upon what you search. Right? Now, do I know that? I should know that, right? That what information is being sent to them. Similarly, the third party, if all information is shared, it should be known to the data subjects. The privacy policy should also state what security precautions are being taken, right? And where, for example, the data is stored. It's not very clear now, obviously, where the data is stored. Are the servers located in India? Are those servers located in the UK, or US, or Maldives? Right? I should know, because the location where the information is stored has very important connotations, right? Because it is jurisdictional, and therefore any law enforcement can take place, and mostly only if it is stored within the location which is collected. Right? So these are very important to be specified in the privacy policy. Right? And the grievance redressal, important. If you look at the privacy policy of Aarogya Setu, it says in case of problems, whom can you contact, phone number, email address, is here. That's also a requisite for the privacy policy. Okay. So now we come to almost the end of the session. After that, I'll take questions. So this is about the possible privacy. So I'm not saying that these are privacy violations, but so these are possible violations. For example, the information collected, right? So, for example, the COVID-19 app collects all these contacts information, location information, health status, and all those things, right? Now, it is stored inside the mobile. Most importantly, if you read the COVID-19 terms and conditions, it says that all this information that is collected is stored in your mobile, right? It does not go outside the mobile until you come into contact with someone who has been tested as COVID-19, right? And then it is transmitted to the government service, and only when tested COVID positive. Now, uh, so once this information, for example, today, in the new version of the COVID-19 app, if you want to know the status of the person whom you have been in touch, been in contact, Bluetooth contact for the last 30 days, you can upload the information of the government service, and then it will tell you immediately what the status of these people is, whether they are they're not tested, if they are tested, whether they are COVID positive or negative. So this information is clear. Now, so which means that once they upload, the information goes to the government service. It can be used for other purposes, It can be used for other surveillance purposes, right? So it can be used for continuous location tracking of me. It can be used for so many other purposes, unwanted purposes, the purposes for which it is not designed, right? So these are possible potential, right? So, I'm sure that you also have this feeling, right? When you have the COVID-19 app, am I being tracked, right? And is it okay if I'm tracked? Am I being surveilled? So these are questions that will come up in your mind, right? So this is a question, and it can be, adversely used, and somebody should take responsibility to make sure that it's not used for surveillance purposes, general surveillance, but it is used for health surveillance purposes. Okay. Then the second possible privacy violation is aggregation. What is aggregation? You put one, and two, and then you come up with this number three, right? The individual information, such as your name, does not yield much. But when your name, along with mobile number, gives you a lot more information, right? So, for example, it shows, with your mobile number and name, you can find out, approximately within 500 kilometers where you live, right? Because each and every mobile number is attached to a short distance calling area. So once you know the mobile number, you will know who the operator is, you will know which where you live. This process is known as aggregation. So COVID-19 does a lot of aggregation, right? So for example, it takes the health information, and then it puts your personal information together and creates what is known as health map, right? This is the health map of the individuals. It also, using contact information, it builds the relationship map, right? So using the contact information, it knows, right? Who are you in contact with? Who are you frequently in contact with, right? And then it can establish some kind of relationship between these two persons, right? Now, this is very, very powerful. This aggregation is very powerful, and if not taken seriously, then it can contain to data breach, right? So, for example, tomorrow, somebody who has got this information will know whom all persons I have contacted in the last 24 hours, right? How much of time I have spent with them. Those kind of information is very harmful, can be used for very harmful purposes, right? So this is aggregation. Then identification. Mobile as the identifier, right? So mobile information is used as an identifier. It's used for very health purposes, it's used for quarantining or contact tracing, but if it gets leaked, it can be used for unwanted purposes. Secondary and third party use. Right? So as I have discussed before, whenever the information goes to third parties, then I have the data subjects have to be informed, right? Basically, none of the COVID-19 apps do that, and for good reasons, right? But if, for example, the information gets transmitted to health insurance providers or telecom operators, then they start calling me for new SIMs or new data plans or new health insurance policies. Then it's really bad. It is really privacy intruding. Then there is insecurity, right? So insecurity means that hacking and stealing. So it should be, every measure should be taken to provide security of the data that has been collected. Exclusion, right? So for example, that is one of the things that we noticed earlier when the COVID-19 Act was mandated for bus or train travel. So for example, if if you don't have, then you cannot board the bus. That is known as exclusion. And that is really very, very disturbing, right? Because it leads to discrimination of individuals, and basically whatever we should promote inclusion and not be used for discrimination purposes, right? So for example, there is also a social stigma associated with COVID-19 positive victims, right? So COVID-19 positive patients, when they are quarantined, then they are excluded, they are discriminated, and that should not be the purpose for which the information is collected through COVID-19. Breach of confidentiality, very, very important, right? We are providing all this information because it will be kept as confidential, right? Now, somebody has to ensure that. For example, there is a doctor-patient confidentiality. Doctors all sign this, agreement. When they sign up for the medical college, my daughter did that. And that is whatever the patient tells the doctor, that will be kept confidential by the doctor. It will not be disclosed to anyone. The same holds good in lawyers and clients. Right? Lawyers also should get to this breach of confidentiality provisions. So when the personal health data is being collected by the data fiduciary, we have to have an assurance that it will be kept confidential and it will not be breached. Right? The information that is collected should not be distorted. For example, there are some cases where, for example, we have not noticed it yet, but if there is a data breach, a patient who is not positive is made to look as positive because the data has been hacked and distorted. Right? That is really bad. That is intrusion of privacy. Decisional interference. For example, most of the COVID-19, because of quarantine individuals, it is used for geofencing, for containment, but it should not be used for any other purposes other than health purposes, right? So what I'm saying is that because COVID-19 collects a lot of personal information, a lot of sensitive personal information, such as health information, can be subject to a lot of privacy intrusions. It is up to the data fiduciary, in which case, in our case, for example, COVID-19, it is the state, the government, should make sure that all these concerns are rightfully addressed so that the data subjects can be at peace, right, when they are downloading and using the COVID-19. That is the most important lesson. I have made some analysis. For example, in the last slide, I have made a comparison of the COVID-19 apps. The Aarogya Setu is here, and Trace Together. Trace Together is the app which is being used in Singapore, and it is touted as one of the best COVID-19 apps. Okay? Now, if you look at, according to the privacy principles, how these apps fare. Right? Green indicates they are good. Right? Red indicates really, really bad. Orange indicates it's medium. Right? It poses some security, privacy risks, and data protection risks. For example, if you look at informed consent, there is informed consent. You can look at the terms and conditions in Aarogya Setu, much like any other app. Purpose limitations. It clearly specifies what is the purpose for which the information is collected by Aarogya Setu. Data minimization. Here we fail to some extent, right, compared to Trace Together. For example, the Trace Together app does not collect geolocation information on a continuous basis. Okay? It collects it at the time you register so that the individual can be traced back to the home, right? Or the health workers can visit the home, but it does not collect the movements, whereas Aarogya Setu collects movements, right? Now, why is it important? The obvious answer is that it can be used for geofencing, it can be used for, to make sure that quarantine rules are adhered to. but that is only a small percentage of people, right? And we are talking about roughly 2 or 3% of the people in the country to be subject to this particular quarantine rules. So it is very, very. So we Aarogya Setu app collects more than what is required for it to perform effectively, and therefore it fails in the data minimization principle. Data accuracy, both of them use, for example, good security principles, no problem. Data integrity, I have put here yellow because there is a very, very technical point here. When the Bluetooth, when it collects information about contacts who are in the Bluetooth range, the Aarogya Setu app uses a constant identifier, whereas Trace Together uses a dynamic identifier, so that the contact time is very brief. Probably it is just 1 minute, and within that 1 minute of transfer of the Bluetooth information, somebody can hack it, right? And if they hack and come to know about that identifier, then they can use it repeatedly and hack all the information that gets transmitted through Bluetooth. In Trace Together, they use dynamic, whereas in Aarogya Setu, we use constant identifier, which is prone to data integrity and hacking, right? Here also we fare a little bit poorly, responsibility and liability, right? So for example, if you go to the data terms and conditions, the COVID-19 Aarogya Setu says that in case of data breach, there is limited liability, and in case the data is stolen, there is a limited liability, and it even goes on to say that there is no liability on the part of the government to make sure that the COVID-19 data is secure and safe, right? Whereas in the Trace Together, the government takes the responsibility, and therefore it says that if there is any breach, you can always contact me and we will rectify it and so on. So here, the Aarogya Setu fails to some extent. Data retention policies are very clear. For example, Aarogya Setu says, for example, the number of days for which the information is collected and retained, 30 days. And if it is a positive case, then it will be not more than 14 days. And so on. So that is also very clearly specific. So there are some loopholes, for example, with respect to data minimization principles, data integrity, responsibility, reliability, usually, but more or less it conforms to, for example, international standards. And so this is basically the idea about the privacy in the COVID-19. It is not to give a warning to each of you. You should definitely, or I'm sure that most of you have downloaded privacy. It improves decision making by the authorities, administrators. It helps our own safety. It helps our society to be safety. It is good, but these concerns, which I have also outlined in the business line, to provide what is known as trust. Right? We all have to trust one another. Right? This trust is very, very important for us to behave responsibly, right? And this trust has to come between data subjects and the data fiduciary, so that we can use this for efficiently and then containing the content. So I am almost done. So I will now open it up for questions. Is that okay? So,
Professor Sridhar Garu, this is Chakrapani, former DG of the AP Human Resource Development Institute.
Yes, sir.
We appreciate your very gracious gesture of addressing the participants of different government departments, and we are very happy to tell you that there are almost 250 participants who are listening to you from different parts of the state and some from outside the state. Now, there are some concerns being expressed about the privacy, but I think, as you rightly emphasized, privacy probably will have to also give place to a certain amount of public good. I think these conflicts are eternal and proverbial. In a pandemic, And I'm sure you have emphasized these in the right measure. Kishore, you open them up for discussion. You read out the questions which
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. If somebody can read it out,
They will read it out. Mr. Kishore Kumar will do that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So we have, for the benefit of participants, we have muted all the mics, and I request all the participants to pour questions in the chat box. There are a few questions that I'll read out one by one. Why every app asks to share our location, sir? Some apps actually need location, but so many apps not needed to share our location. This is a question from Mrs. Kumari Bhai.
Yeah. So as I have pointed out, location sharing is not done by all the apps. You know, for example, as I have discussed, the Place Together app does not require your location to be shared. But Aarogya Setu automatically enables GPS so that your location is always shared. Now, why is it? Why should we need the location? As I've pointed out in the last slide, it's not very much required. It is required only if the individual is quarantined, right? If the individual is home quarantine, for example, then that individual should not be moving out of the house, right? Because he is home quarantine. Now, if, for example, if you have location information, then you can use something called as geofencing to limit the area that that particular individual can travel. If he steps out, if he or she steps out of that bound, then immediately the control room will come to know. There is, obviously there is a COVID war room in each of these cities. So once the geofencing is violated, then that information will be sent to the COVID room so that they can contact the individual, make sure that he comes back to the quarantine zone. This is only for this purpose that the location information is required for COVID-19. And as I have pointed out, these are very few individuals, right? These are normally, the people who are having asymptomatic and then tested positive are the cases that we need to sort of worry about with respect to location. Others, anyway, they are at the hospital, we don't have to worry about location. Only for home quarantine people that it is used. And therefore, I must say that data location, continuous movement of the data, monitoring for everyone, right, is a little overkill. And that's why it violates the data minimization. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And there has been the next level of question. Some apps ask access of phone contacts, media files, etc. If we deny, they cannot be installed. Why? This is the question.
Yeah. So this also point I mentioned, right? Because see, most of the app builders, they don't use privacy by design. What they should be thinking about is, why should I have access? For example, if it is a health app, why should I have access to your photos? Right? There is no need for the app to access my photo. Maybe, the app might have to have access to my SMS because they have to send OTP, right? Or they have to have access to the contacts. So that contact list, even that is very much debatable. Right? So most of these apps do not use privacy by design principle. If you use privacy by design principle, then you will collect and you will get the confirmed consent from the data subjects only for the data that you really want for the purpose. Right? So in fact, most of these, the reason is also that we don't have a law yet, right? They won't do it. For example, in European Union, because they will be subject to European Union General Data Protection Regulation, they will be slammed a heavy fine. For example, most of the websites, when you visit, today only, now only they have started asking, we have a cookie, right? We please accept this or look at this cookie policy, right? Before accepting it and so on, right? Now, if you don't accept the cookie, that website may not show up. That's not correct because that is exclusion because I am forced to comply with that. That is also not correct. Hopefully, after the law comes into picture, everyone will be afraid and they will comply by the regulation. Next question, please.
Yes, sir. Sir, in light of this regulatory framework in a very nascent stage, why should we accept all the data sharing permissions on some of the apps? Is it safe? And when we uninstall some apps, our information will be deleted from the server. Could you please throw some light on this? There are two questions.
Correct. So, your information is not safe, right? I must tell you very frankly, because you see, for example, when you uh, say that you will accept a cookie policy, then the cookie can actually track the movement of even your cursor on the screen, whether you are in this portion of the screen or this portion of the screen or center of the screen. That also can be tracked by the cookie, right? So this information, if you have given acceptance, then all this information goes, right? What are the websites that you visited and things like that. It's not safe at all, right? So the privacy, so you have to look at the privacy policy of this particular thing or the website that you visit. Normally, the privacy policy will be there at the bottom. So you have to look at the privacy policy, see what information is collected. Most of the privacy policies have something called a cookie policy. It basically says what information is being collected by the cookies. So you have to convince yourself that the information is okay for you to share, right? And they also have, according to the privacy principles, they also have information sharing policy. Whom all do they sell the particular information that they have collected? So only when you are comfortable that you should say yes, right? Unfortunately, because there is low law in India on the personal data protection, if they misuse, for example, you must have heard about this particular incident that Zoom in the privacy policy states that the recording is always somebody is not muted.
There
Somebody
is
is not.
some cross. I request.
1 minute, processing. Somebody has unmuted, please.
Correct. Somebody is not muted. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Ravinder, somebody has unmuted the mic. Please mute all mics. Right.
Okay. Yeah. So you must have known this particular incident, right? Zoom, the video conferencing tool that we use much like WebEx. It says in the privacy policy that all the recordings, if you want to record, you can record, and you can record it either locally on your laptop or you can record it on the cloud. It says that all the cloud recordings are based in the servers in the United States. However, later on we came to know that there are a lot of servers which have been put in China, especially the Hubei province, Wuhan. And some of the recordings were also saved in the servers in China. So that is a violation of the privacy policy, right? And if you have a law, then you can take Zoom to the court and then sue them for millions of dollars, right? Or the regulator can levy a penalty. In fact, in the Europe, it will never happen because the European Union Data Protection Regulation levies a fine of up to 4% of the gross revenue as fine, right? So, for example, $1 billion company, 4% can be a huge sum, right? If it is a $1 billion company, it will come to about, close to 40-50 million, right? That's not 40, it's about 150-200 million. That's a lot of money for the fiduciary, right? Therefore, they will not do anything like that. But unfortunately, in India, it is yet to be enacted. But once it's enacted, the same rules are applicable. In Indian Personal Data Protection Bill also says that if there is any violation, then there can be a penalty of up to 4% of the revenue for every incident that takes place. And therefore, they will be very, very careful after the law comes into effect. Is that clear?
Thank you, sir. There is one general question. Usually, after our physical conversation, an advertisement relevant to the other conversations pops up on few websites. Do some of these apps use our microphone for targeted marketing? Is it legal to do so?
Again, the same question, right? No,
Yes.
it is not legal, right? So, if the microphone is switched on and your whatever you speak is being recorded and used by the app, unless you have said explicitly yes, then it's not lawful. I want to point out one more thing. There is something called opt-in and opt-out, right? By default, most of the apps will say that you are automatically opted in. When you install the app, I will automatically get access to all the information that I want. That is known as automatic opt-in. The regulation, especially in the European Union data protection law, says that no opt-in, automatic opt-in from now onwards. Everything has to be opted out automatically. And if you want, everything, individual information has to be opted in selectively by the data centers, which means that I have to click yes, right? Then only that the app can have access to that particular information, right? Now, in most of the apps, there is only one consent button, which gives blanket access to all the resources in the phone, such as, for example, contact, file sharing, photo sharing, microphone, and so on. In future, these apps will be redesigned once the law comes into effect, so that you will give selective access. You know, for example, if you don't want access to microphone, then you should be able to check it out, right? Not opt in, right? And that will have to be implemented by the data fiduciaries. You are correct that most of the fiduciaries are in fact cheating us, and they will be liable sometime or the other if they continue.
Yes, yeah. Thank you, sir. It is like there is one question out of inquisitiveness by Srimati Varalakshmi, Mahila Police. So where can we get such information so that we can also learn these things regarding the data privacy?
See, I would suggest I will send it to Mr. Kishore. The one of the some of the important papers, or the topic that discusses privacy. I have also written one chapter in the book that has been published last year, so I can also send that particular chapter so that you can get some information about this.
Thank you, sir. We'll host all this information on our website. Varalakshmi Garu will host that in our website. Our information website launch them so that you can download that from our website. And there is one question on the legalities. Why stringent action cannot be taken against those who violate app which disclose information?
Yeah, so this is basically, see, for example, you, you and I know that when you browse in Google search, that information is collected and then is used for advertisement purposes. Now, it is possible that I can go to the court and sue Google because it has not given me enough information and it has stolen a lot of my information. But unfortunately, these data fiduciaries also have good lawyers, right? And therefore, they will come back and fight, right, against this. So that is the problem which was present earlier, but today that problem has been solved because in the European Union, a lot of countries have slammed heavy fines on Google, Facebook, and so on. In India, it has not yet happened. Okay? Again, because of there's no law. There's no, see, Information Technology Act provides some help, but it also provides a lot of immunity, which means that it basically does not make the app responsible for any data leakage or any other thing. Okay? So there is something called as immunity, which is built into the Information Technology Act. I must tell you that there is something called as intermediary amendment guidelines, which is again just to be tabled with the parliament. Now that puts a lot of responsibility on the app providers for the content that they collect from the individual data centers. Now, if that is enacted, then the data intermediaries such as Google, Facebook, and all the applications will be held more accountable, and they will have to, there will be, they will be subject to civil litigation if there is any violation. Again, it is not yet taken up in the parliament because of the COVID crisis, but you can search in the Department of Telecommunication website or Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology website, data intermediary guidelines, right? The data intermediary guidelines. I will also post that one to Mr. Kishore Kumar. You can go through that So that if that comes into effect, there will be some responsibility liability for the censor.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question on the follow-up, which was asked again. Can they use microphone even when mobile is locked? The one who designs the app.
See, it all depends upon the kind of app. For example, if it gets to the kernel, then it is possible to wake up the particular app. For example, it was told that Google, in the Google Voice Assistant, continues to collect the voice recordings even when it is not woken up. You have to wake up Google Voice Assistant before it responds to your voice queries. But there was a case in the US which said that even before you wake up the Google Voice Assistant, it continues to collect the data. I mean the voice, whatever you are speaking. So it is possible. For example, Google Apps have access to the kernel, and therefore they can change the settings automatically. If that can be done, then it's possible. But it is against can be subject to law.
So we have one more question from Mrs. Priyanka. After the app uninstallation, should they access our data or not? Could you throw some?
See, yeah. So if you look at the privacy policy of most of the apps, what they will say is that even if you deregister, if you reinstall the app, your information will be retained for some time. Okay? And that should be given in the privacy policy. Most of them, for example, if you look at Amazon privacy policy or Flipkart, I'm not sure, but Amazon definitely. If you don't look at the privacy policy, they will say that the information about your registration will be kept with us for another 6 months or something like that, even if you deinstall the phone, deinstall it from the phone. Why? Because they have a lot of information about the purchasing behavior, and therefore they can use it for marketing some things which you have bought to users very similar to you. Even though you may have deinstalled, the others might not have deinstalled. Therefore, they can be sent as promotional advertisement. So you have to look at the privacy policy. So every app has to have a privacy policy. And if you are very wary about sharing personal data or information, you have to look at the privacy policy to make sure whether they retain the data after you delete the app.
It's not audible, sir. I think your mic is muted, sir.
No. So did you hear what I said about the privacy policy?
Just heard just before, I think 10-15 seconds it was muted. We are not able to listen.
Okay. So I'll just repeat it. If you are wary about your personal information, when you deinstall the app, you have to go to the privacy policy of the app. Make sure whether the data about you will be retained, even if you deinstall the app. So that is your responsibility to find out. Next question, sir.
So we don't have any questions, sir. In general,
I have just one request to make to Professor Sridhar. This is Chakrapani, Professor Sridhar. Could you kindly explain the role of an ethical hacker? Who certifies them as ethical hackers?
So, as we know, the IT systems are not foolproof. Nobody can guarantee that there will not be any vulnerability in the IT system that we deploy. So, every IT systems might be vulnerable to some extent in certain ways. Right? And therefore, there is a concept called white hat hacking or ethical hacking. These are all professionals who are hired by the data fiduciary to do hacking on behalf of the company to find out whether their systems are vulnerable or not. Right? If so, point out the vulnerable areas so that the software can be modified patches can be put so that it can be made as security proof. And that is the whole concept of ethical hacking. Now, it is very, very important that the ethical hacker and the company come into a contract saying that when the ethical hacking is done, it will be only used for finding out the vulnerable areas that can be improved by the company. Right? The ethical hacker cannot take this information and sell it to some third party or make some monetary gain out of this particular outside the contract. So it is very, very important to have this contract between the company and the ethical hacker so that the true purpose, what is the purpose? The purpose is to reduce the vulnerability of the system so that the data about the subjects can be prevented from being hacked. And that is the whole concept of ethical hacking. There are ethical hackers which are being deployed, many times by the data fiduciary companies in order to make their systems foolproof. Mr. Chakramani, sir?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Thank you. Kishore, now if there are any announcements, Bhartiya,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
please make the announcements and then this can be followed by a word of thanks from Mr. Kishore.
Today afternoon, we are conducting in association with the National Institute of Disaster Management, revising urban risk planning for complex emergencies. We have so far received 2,900 and odd confirmed participants from 35 states and 34 organizations and departments. We are also conducting 7th July tomorrow, Tuesday at 11 o'clock in the category of general sessions. Management of facial sludge in rural areas by Professor Susmita Sen Gupta. Rural Water Waste Management, New Delhi, Environmental Studies. Wednesday,